Well, hello, hello, hello. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks, actually. Welcome to this special Monday edition of Effed Up News. We're doing it on Monday because I just got my YouTube channel back today after an egregious BS move that YouTube pulled to ban me for 2 weeks after content that they had manually reviewed and approved. We're going to talk about that. If you haven't watched the video earlier today, I will give you a little brief recap. But guys, I just wanted to do it live today instead of yesterday because it's just more fun with my main YouTube channel. That's where I get most of my views. But because of YouTube shenanigans, we will now and forever be live streaming across multiple different platforms every time I go live. So today we are on Facebook, we are on Odyssey, we are on Rockfin, and of course we are on my main YouTube channel. Please, please, please make sure you are following my content in multiple places so that when YouTube does BS things like ban me for 2 weeks for content they manually approved after human review, I will be able to communicate with you and you will be able to find out where to find me. But I'm really happy to be back. I've missed you guys. I know many of you have not only missed this stream, but most importantly, we know you've all missed Joshua with Nothing Remotely Controversial. For those of you who are not a member of my locals community, Joshua was actually last week, in lieu of doing Nothing Remotely Controversial, Joshua actually came and did a private Zoom call with my community. All the more reason for you to join locals. We're going to talk about that. But just to confirm, Nothing Remotely Controversial, unless something goes horribly wrong between now and tomorrow at 9:30 p.m., Nothing Remotely Controversial will be back on this channel at 9:30 tomorrow, and I've got some great streams lined up over the next couple of weeks. I think you guys are going to be really excited with some of the content we're going to have. But first, let's talk about the reason that you have not seen Effed Up News for a couple of weeks, and that is because of this. I did post a video about this earlier today, so we're not going to go harp on it. You can just watch the other video. But just to give you guys some context, the last time I did an Effed Up News stream on this channel, I read a story about the University of Virginia disenrolling unvaccinated students that was in The Hill, so kind of a reputable publication. YouTube actually went through, and you have the email right here. Your video is suitable for all advertisers. Effed Up News of the Week. This was sent to me the morning after I did this stream. So I kind of thought, I even said in my last Effed Up News stream, I was like, I'm probably going to get a strike for covering vaccine-related nonsense. But to my utter shock and surprise, when I woke up the next morning, YouTube had manually reviewed the stream and had decided that not only did I not violate their terms of service, but that they were going to monetize it for all advertisers. So I was like, all right, I'm in the clear. I can make clips of this stream. It'll be great. So what I did is I went through and I made clips of the different segments that I did. And within 15 minutes of me posting the University of Virginia disenrolled unvaccinated students as a two-tiered society is being created, YouTube gave me a second strike on my channel, even though they had already manually reviewed the content. And the funniest part of it is that the original Effed Up News stream actually stayed live on the channel for several days after YouTube gave me this bullshit strike, until I started just creating a fuss and writing articles about how YouTube is purposely trying to ban their creators. And then they removed the original stream as well. But you can see that the clip from the stream was removed when the original stream was still up because they manually reviewed the stream, YouTube. So that's what happened. That's to catch anyone up who was not here before. That's what happened. That's why I've been offline for a couple weeks. But that's all right because we're back now. And I know what all of you guys are going to do is not only that you're going to mount that like button because you appreciate that Effed Up News is back, but you're also going to join my locals community. Because locals is the only place on the internet that I do trust that I will not be censored, I will not be banned, I will forever be on locals and will be able to talk about whatever I want to talk about on locals without worrying about what YouTube or any of the big tech platforms think of it. Now, locals is free to join. I'm going to repeat that again. Locals is free. It is free. I know it doesn't look good right now with what I have on the screen, but it is free to join. You can go to kb.locals.com and sign up as a free member. When you sign up as a free member, you get access to all of my videos that I post on YouTube, except you get them ad-free. You also get to see what other people are posting in the community. You get to see what people are talking about. But if you do want to unlock all of the features of Locals as well as support the work I'm doing, it does come, you got to get a little skin in the game, as Dave Rubin would say. It comes with a cost of $5 for a monthly membership, $50 for an annual membership, which gives you 2 months for free. And if you just want to be a good supporter and support the work I'm doing, you can also make one-time donations. Listen, I know some of you are channel members on my YouTube channel, and totally, if that's the right thing for you, if that's the best way to do it for you, I totally get it. No harm, no foul. But I really do have a very strong preference for people joining my Locals community. You're going to get to attend 2 Zoom calls a week with me. You're going to get to do debate club, and not just with me, with like other people in the community as well, because people in the community are like far cooler than I am, to be honest. But we're going to get to chat. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to do debate club together, book club together. We do crafting bitches. We have a community Discord just for Locals. A lot of my Locals are watching on YouTube right now, so they can tell you how awesome it is, and I appreciate all of you. Janice Zeal is in my Locals. Janice says, I missed the crap out of you. So has my hair. Janice recently got SJW hair, and it looks great. It's very, very blue. I'm happy to be back. Janice. Locals is the best place on the internet, guys. Make sure you come and join us. And for the minimum reason, guys, like, even if you don't sign up for a paid account, like, I don't care if you sign up for a paid account. I don't care. What I care about is you signing up for a free account, and that way, if YouTube does something boneheaded, like ban me for 2 weeks for content that they manually reviewed and approved, I at least have a way to communicate with you and let you know what's going on. So this is the age that we're in. It is what it is. I hope I see all of you in Locals. All right, let's dig into it for our Effed Up News of the Week. The first thing I want to do is complain about Republicans. It wouldn't be a week if I didn't complain about Republicans, because Republicans are so feckless. I'm sorry. They're so feckless. And I'm talking about the politicians in this case. I'm not talking about average everyday people. I am talking about the politicians, even though if the voter base would hold Republicans accountable, then perhaps Republican politicians would actually start doing things. But no, we have this article from last week, of course, in the midst of the epic Biden foobar that is Afghanistan. Listen, man, I've made my views on Afghanistan clear. I don't think we ever should have been there in the first place. I was protesting this stuff back in college. Yes, I am that old. I was protesting this back in college. I didn't think we should have gone into Afghanistan when we did. I sure as hell don't think we should have been there for 20 years. And I was completely in support of withdrawing each and every person in Afghanistan. I always thought that the second we withdrew, the Taliban were going to take it over anyway, and that proved to be correct. But I will say this. What I did not anticipate was Joe Biden leaving behind like $80 billion worth of equipment and guns and money and all these and Black Hawk helicopters. I did not anticipate the Biden F up of and American citizens. Least we forget American citizens. I did not anticipate that the Biden administration would be so effing incompetent that they would I mean, can you imagine a worse F up to this withdrawal from Afghanistan? I can't. And I'm sorry, it is an impeachable offense if there ever was one. And I don't care who controls what. I do not care, because my biggest problem with the Republicans is they never do anything. They don't even try. Think about all of the big tech censorship that's going on nowadays. They could have made statement after statement after statement after statement after statement after statement after statement against big tech censorship. They could have tried to do something. We have all this stuff now that so many things are coming out about COVID that I can't talk about on YouTube because of big tech censorship. Like, so many things are coming out about COVID that was dubbed a conspiracy theory a year ago, and now we know that it's absolutely correct. And these were chances for Republicans to do something, to say how many people got banned off of social media entirely for stating things that were absolutely true and have since been proven to be true, but were banned off these big tech platforms, still have not been reinstated on these big tech platforms, and instead they do nothing. And this is another example of Republicans doing nothing. Effing Mitch McConnell, who just got reelected to Senate last year for another 6-year term, because the voters on the Republican Party are feckless. I'm sorry. You keep electing these do-nothing politicians and you expect things to change. And then you say, well, who else do you expect us to vote for? Don't vote for these people. Let them lose. The only way you will ever get politicians that it will actually do something is if they know that they will lose if they do not do something. No, this is not, it's like, so I'm seeing people in the chat say we need term limits. No, 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 no. You need to stop voting for horrible politicians. If you stop voting for horrible politicians, you create term limits. We have term limits. They're called elections. If you don't want someone in office, stop voting for them. And then the Republican Party will learn that they need to actually put up candidates that are actually going to do something. So let's read about the latest do nothing Republican strategy. Are we going to impeach Joe Biden, or even attempt to impeach Joe Biden, or even talking about impeaching Joe Biden over the epic foobar that is Afghanistan? No, of course not. Why would we? It's not like the Democrats tried to impeach Trump over a flipping phone call. No, not going to do anything. Senator Mitch McConnell says no impeachment of Biden over Afghanistan. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on Wednesday, against last week, waved off GOP calls for Joe Biden's impeachment over his administration's handlings of Afghanistan's military withdrawal, saying it is an issue voters will have to decide at the ballot box. But of course, well, I mean, this actually makes sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it make sense? Because Republicans love being controlled opposition. That's all they are. Republicans don't know how to lead. They don't know how to do any of this stuff. They don't know how to create a vision. They don't know how to say, here's what we want to do for America. The only thing that Republicans know how to run on is, don't the Democrats suck? Don't the Democrats really suck? Don't you hate the Democrats? The Democrats are awful. Joe Biden never does anything right. And this is why I'm so afraid that Republicans are going to lose in 2022, because they have learned nothing. They have learned nothing. They have no vision for the country. They have no strategy for the country. They provide absolutely no leadership. The only thing the Republicans do is say, doesn't Joe Biden suck? Don't the Democrats suck? Don't you hate the Democrats? Aren't the Democrats crazy? This is not a vision. You're not giving anyone anything to vote for. And they're doing it again. Oh, we're just gonna have to be controlled opposition until next November. That's all we're going to do. The president is not going to be removed from office, McConnell told Republicans at an event in Kentucky. It's a Democratic House, a narrowly Democratic Senate. That's not going to happen. Well, he's correct about that. He's absolutely correct. Joe Biden's not going to get removed from office. I'm sorry, folks, he's not. But that's actually not the point. That is not the point. It's not the point. The point is trying. The point is showing up and doing something. Trying to do anything other than saying, doesn't Joe Biden suck? Joe Biden is the worst. Isn't Kamala Harris the worst? Don't we hate the Democrats? The Democrats are crazy. Look at all these crazy things the Democrats are doing. The point is that you try. And they repeatedly do this again and again and again. And you wonder why people like me don't think the Republicans or the GOP or the political right take their responsibility in the culture war seriously, because they never do anything except say, the other side sucks. The other side is awful. I swear to God, they have become exactly like the Democrats were under Trump, because all the Democrats did under Trump was say, isn't Trump awful? Trump is the worst. Trump is psychotic. Trump is sending mean tweets. Trump is a narcissist doing this, that, and the other thing. Trump is the worst thing ever. That's all they did. That's all they did. And the Republicans relied on Trump to do everything, while simultaneously effing working against him the entire time. And this is why we are where we are, because no one wants to be a leader. Everyone just wants to blame the other guy for everything and not do a dang thing. And Republican voters, I'm sorry, these are the politicians that you vote for. I can't come down on the Democrats when you vote for horrible politicians. I can't. This is your fault. These are your elected leaders that know emphatically, man. They know emphatically that you are still going to vote for them, no matter what they do. No matter how little they stand up for you, no matter how little they do to fight for anything, you're still going to go to that ballot box. You're still going to check off their name, and they know it. And that's why they do not represent you ever. They know that you're going to say, well, who else are we going to vote for? Stop voting for them. His comments came after Senator Lindsey Graham on Sunday said that Congress should try to remove Biden from office over America's chaotic exit. Lindsey effing Graham is doing more than the Republican leadership. Lindsey Graham. God damn it. Which has left up to 200 Americans and scores of Afghan allies stranded in the Taliban-controlled country. Yeah, I think Biden's been derelict in his duties as commander-in-chief, Graham said on CBS's Face the Nation. You think? I don't think he got bad advice and took it. I think he ignored sound advice. So that's where we are with that. Biden has the worst military F up in a generation. And what are the Republicans going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. Because that is what the Republicans do. And that's why, getting to our next story, we have to deal with nonsense like this. You know, when I was a teenager, I remember this idea. I was like 13 years old or something. My plan when I was 13 years old was to go to law school and become a First Amendment lawyer and to go work for the ACLU. I donated to the ACLU from the time I think I joined the ACLU in like college, and I was donating regularly like all throughout my 20s. I think up until I was like up close to my 30s, I think. But the ACLU has completely fallen. They might have the title of ACLU, but it doesn't mean anything. You know what I loved about the ACLU was that they would defend people that were the worst possible people in the world because it was about the principle. It was not about the people. They would defend the KKK. They would defend actual neo-Nazis. They defended the Westboro Baptist Church, not because they agree with the absurd things these people say, but because it was about defending the principle. And when you protect free speech for the worst possible people, that's when you protect free speech for the rest of us. When you protect the liberties of the worst possible people in the world, that's when you protect liberties for the rest of us. And the ACLU used to understand that, and that's why I really like I dreamt for years of working with the ACLU. And then to see stuff like this, it's like they have fallen so far, and there's no replacement for the ACLU. There's none. I know FAIR was trying to be, or that was like part of the initial vision of FAIR was being a replacement for the ACLU. That ain't going to work out for reasons I'm not going to talk about on a live stream. But you know what? Like there is no replacement for the ACLU. This is a completely like voided issue in our culture. There's no one defending our basic civil liberties. This is a series of tweets that the ACLU sent on September 2nd. And guys, by the way, given that YouTube gave me a strike and banned me for 2 weeks for talking about vaccine-related things, I'm not really planning on doing a lot related to vaccine and COVID on my channel moving forward for the least little bit of while. And so when I'm reading stuff about vaccines and COVID in general, I'm just going to read verbatim. I'm not going to make any commentary or anything like that because I don't want to give YouTube any excuse to fuck me again. And that's just going to be the way it is. So let's read this series of tweets. Far from compromising them, vaccine mandates actually further civil liberties. They protect the most vulnerable people with disabilities and fragile systems, children too young to be vaccinated, and communities of color hit hard by the disease. Vaccine requirements also safeguard those whose work involves regular exposure to the public, like teachers, doctors, and nurses, except those nurses who are unvaccinated, bus drivers, and grocery store employees. And this is my favorite one right here. And by inoculating people from the disease's worst effects, the vaccines offer the promise of restoring to all of us the most basic liberties, eventually allowing us to return safely to life as we knew it in schools and at houses of worship and political meetings. Now, pop quiz for everyone in the chat. What part of this particular tweet do you think I find most perturbing? If you had to pick out a section of this particular tweet that you found perturbing, which section would that be? I'm really curious about your answers. Chat in your answers. Let me know which section of this tweet you're just like, huh, That doesn't really sound right, does it? It doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like something the ACLU should say, and yet here we are. And yet here we are. Which one is that? I'll be paying attention to the chat. And I know there's a delay, and that's just the way it is. Yes. Yes, Adrian, mandating something to allow us to return to normal. Yeah. Yep. Emily L., most basic liberties. Yep. 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 In order to protect our liberties, we have to do this thing. Yeah, I'm gonna say the promise of restoring to all of us our most basic liberties. I'm sorry. Why were those liberties taken away from us to begin with? And why is the ACLU defending that those liberties were taken away from us to begin with? The promise of restoring our most basic liberties. Doesn't the ACLU specifically exist for the purpose of defending our most basic liberties to make sure that they are never taken away from us? And now they're saying, all you have to do to get your most basic liberties is just to get a shot of this medication in your arm. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is just it's so easy. Just all you have to do, and then you get your most basic liberties back. They never should have been taken away in the first place. And this is not a commentary on whether or not you should get the vaccine. I don't really care. Look at the CDC data. Talk to your doctor. It is entirely your decision. Look at the CDC data. The YouTubes want you to look at the CDC. Fine. Whatever. That's not the point. The point is that if our liberties are the most basic liberties, then they should never be taken away for any reason. They are innate. It is not the government's job to grant us our most basic liberties. We are granted our most basic liberties by sheer virtue of existing. They're granted to us by God, by our creator. That's where they come from. They don't come from the government. That's not how that works. And the ACLU, more than anyone else, should know that. And you know what this reminded me of? This actually reminded me of a tweet that we looked at in my last YouTube edition of Effed Up News of the Week. It reminded me from this tweet. You guys remember this tweet from Australia? That shit show that's Australia? Check this out, just in case you need a little refresher course. New South Wales residents that are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will be given new freedoms. Oh my God, new freedoms. The government is granting me new freedoms. Oh my God. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like the ACLU saying, if you just get the vaccine, we promise to we promise to give you back your basic liberties. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Guys, if you don't think that what's happening in Australia can't happen here, I got news for you, because it certainly sounds like the organization that is supposed to, in theory, be in charge of protecting our most basic liberties is offering to give those liberties back to us as long as we just comply and do what they want us to do, and just get the vaccination, and then just get the booster shot, and then just get the next booster shot and the next booster shot after that. How many booster shots do you think is it going to take for people to start questioning this bullshit? Honestly, how many booster shots do you think is going to be required until people say, they're trying to make us do this forever, aren't they? Like, how long do you think they're going to be able to hold the carrot in front of people to say, if you just do this, then you can have your freedom. If you just do that, then you can have your freedom. And no, we thought you could have all your freedoms after the last thing, but really we need you to do this next thing before you get your freedoms back. Nick H says ACLU says vaccines offer the promise. That would imply that my freedom can or cannot be given by the government at the whim of my safety. KMA Gov. I'm not sure what that last part means. Yeah. So the ACLU was linking to this opinion piece in the New York Times. And again, I'm not going to offer any commentary or any independent thought about what this opinion piece says. But I do want to just read you a little bit of it. completely devoid of my commentary or independent thought because YouTube doesn't like commentary or independent thought on this topic. YouTube doesn't allow for commentary or independent thought on this topic. YouTube wants you to look at the CDC's website. Oh, kiss my ass. Got it, Nick. Thank you. Yes, I agree with that sentiment, Nick. So let's read a couple. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a little game. I am going to read this article from the New York Times, written by the ACLU YouTube, and I'm going to allow my chat to do the commentary. So, whatever you guys think about this article, please feel free to just chat it in, and you guys can do the commentary on this as I just read this article word for word. It's in the New York Times, therefore it must be true, right? We work at the ACLU. Here's what we think about vaccine mandates. Do vaccine mandates violate civil liberties? Some who have refused vaccination claim as much. We disagree. At the ACLU, we are not shy about defending civil liberties. All right, even when they are very unpopular. But we see no civil liberties problem with requiring COVID-19 vaccines in most circumstances. While the permissibility of requiring vaccines for particular diseases depends on several factors, when it comes to COVID-19, all considerations point in the same direction. The disease is highly transmissible, serious, and often lethal. I wonder how they're defining often. I just think often, when you're saying often lethal, probably needs a definition. The vaccines are safe. I'm sure they mean like as often as people, whatever. The vaccines are safe and effective. And crucially, there is no equally effective alternative available to protect public health. In fact, far from compromising civil liberties, vaccine mandates actually further civil liberties. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Vaccines further civil liberties. Vaccine mandates further civil liberties. They protect the most vulnerable among us, including people with disabilities and fragile immune systems, and children too young to be vaccinated, and communities of color hit hard by the disease. Vaccine requirements also safeguard those whose work involves regular exposure to the public, like teachers, doctors, nurses, bus drivers, and grocery store employees, and by inoculating people from the disease's worst effects. The vaccines. Oh, that's an interesting sentence, isn't it? Without commentary on the content, this is an interesting sentence. By inoculating people from the disease's worst effects. I'm just going to ask the chat, and you guys can provide your own commentary. Why do you think I think that that's an interesting sentence? Why do you guys think I think that that's an interesting sentence? By inoculating people from the disease's worst effects. I'm not providing any commentary, YouTube. I'm just directing people to the CDC. People should check with the CDC. I'm not a doctor. Why do you guys think I think that's interesting? The vaccines offer the promise of restoring to all of us our most basic liberties, eventually allowing us to return safely to life as we know it in schools and at houses of worship and political meetings, not to mention restaurants, bars, gatherings with friends and families. Here's why civil liberties objections to COVID-19 vaccine mandates are generally unfounded. I'm not going to read any more of this bullshit. You guys can, I will link to the article somewhere, probably. It's not in the description right now, but you guys can look up the article. You're perfectly capable of Googling this in the New York Times, and you can read the full article for yourself if you are interested in why the ACLU believes that restoring our most basic liberties should be dependent on us bending the knee and doing what they want us to do. Moving on to another, because if they can take our most basic liberties away, listen, man, if the government can take away our most basic liberties and the ACLU will bless that, then what's to stop them from taking away parental rights? You ready for it? Let's read this opinion piece from Politico. Mask mandates by schools have quickly become one of the most politically charged aspects of the pandemic. At least 6 states in the South and Southwest have banned or undercut mask mandates. Now, this is actually already a lie right here because because students can still wear masks to school. No one is saying that kids can't wear masks. They're saying that it's not going to be required and that the parents should make the choice. Incensed anti-mask parents are speaking out at school board meetings and public protests. On the first day of school in Amador County, California, one parent became so irate when he saw his daughter walking out of school in a mask that he began arguing with the principal and ended up in a bloody fight with a teacher. Yet unmasked students are increasingly likely to become infected and infect others at a time when the Delta variant represents a serious threat to children. Notice there's no data in that paragraph to support that statement. The minimal burden on children and the tremendous benefit to individual and public health make parental outrage difficult to fathom. Does this sound like propaganda to anyone else? Because it sounds a little bit like propaganda to me, if I'm honest. Parents opposed to mask mandates cite a variety of arguments, be they philosophical or political, erroneous or conspiratorial. Dun, dun, dun. But perhaps the most common, misguided, and dangerous reason that a mask mandates for schools children violate ill-defined but allegedly comprehensive and paramount parental, in quotes, in effing quotes, parental rights. You know, I take a fair bit of flack from people. They say, Carlin, you yell on your YouTube channel. I'm sorry. Why aren't you angry about this? I don't even have kids. And I'm angry about pieces like this coming out saying, well, parental rights really aren't that big of a deal. I don't even have kids, man. If you have kids, why aren't you angry about this? Why are you, here's a better question. Why are you more angry about me yelling on my YouTube channel than you are about people trying to take away parental rights? That's a pretty good question if you ask me. When it comes to society's interest in protecting children, the legal precedent is unambiguous. The rights of their parents come second. I'm just gonna read this sentence again. Let's take a minute here. Let's just take a minute with this sentence, okay? Let's even, I wonder if I can even make this bigger. Oh shit. Make it bigger? Yeah, let's just take a minute here. Let's take a minute. When it comes to society's interest in protecting children, the legal precedent is unambiguous. The rights of their parents come second. Parents do have the freedom to direct the healthcare and education of their children, but these rights are not unlimited. As the Supreme Court said in Prince v. Massachusetts, parents are not free to make martyrs of their children by putting them in harm's way. The government can and do limits parents' discretion with the goal of protecting their health, safety, and welfare of your children. So according to this opinion piece in Politico, if you have children, you are not able to make the basic decision of whether or not they wear a piece of cloth over their face. I don't want to hear anyone complaining about burqas ever again if they support this crap. Don't want to hear anyone complaining about it. All 50 states also have the power to limit parental discretion to protect other children. For instance, schools and daycare facilities are heavily regulated by local, state, and federal government. Well, schools are actually, hang on. Let's just do a quick correction. Schools are not heavily regulated by the government. Schools are government facilities. Public schools, which the vast majority of schools are, public schools funded by taxpayer dollars, are government facilities. They are government facilities. They're state-run institutions We've got to start being really specific about this. We've got to start being really pragmatic about our language, guys. Like, I swear to God, language, people harp on me for like not using the anti-white language when it comes to CRT. But the reason I do that is the same reason I'm going to call schools government run facilities. We've got to be really smart in how we're using language, because language is the weapon that the left are using. And if we don't fight this fight, if we just cede the language battleground to the left, then they will win. If we do not fight back using language as one of our most primary weapons, then they will win. Undoubtedly, there are times when public school policies overreach and infringe on parental rights. Well, at least they admit that. But this isn't one of them. Ugh, so close yet so far. Amid a global pandemic that has killed more than 4 million children, including over 600,000 Americans, a wide range of public health measures are legally and ethically justified. Of course, they don't talk about the cost of any of these things. They don't talk about the emotional costs on children. They don't talk about increased rates of depression. They don't talk about all the myriad of self-esteem problems this is going to create when you walk around all like for 8 hours a day with something covering your face. Guess what? You're going to have self-esteem problems. These are going to be self-esteem problems. They're going to follow these kids throughout the rest of their lives, by the way. We're going to see, wait, man, you wait 5-10 years. We're going to see depression rates skyrocket among this group. We're going to see anxiety rates skyrocket among this group. We're going to see really low self-esteem across kids who had to deal with this. We're going to see problems with kids being able to communicate. We're going to see problems with people being able to use their voice to communicate. It's going to be bad. It's going to the mental health crisis that we are going to have in about 10 years is going to, and probably even sooner, to be honest, it's going to be really, really bad. And guess what? The entire profession of psychology has gone woke. So they ain't going to be able to fix it. We are so screwed. We are so screwed. As a parent, we should not make our children victims of a reckless and wrong-headed understanding of parental prerogatives. We should spend less time thinking about the rights we claim for ourselves and more time thinking about our responsibilities to protect our children. Which apparently doesn't involve protecting the mental or emotional well-being of those children or making sure that they have like the self-esteem that they need to thrive in adulthood. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means covering their face with a mask so that everyone else feels more comfortable. Fine. I don't have kids, man. If parents want to put up with this crap, I guess that is their prerogative. I don't have kids, so I don't need to worry about it. Let's talk about critical race theory, shall we? Let's talk about critical race theory. Let's move on. Let's move on to a more lighthearted story. Check this out. Talk about virtue signaling. It always comes from Canada, doesn't it? Canada, man. Canada is like second most crazy next to Australia. I'm curious, like, okay, so like Trudeau's up for like there's an election in Canada, right? Do you guys think Trudeau's gonna pull it out? Not in that way. How do you guys think Trudeau's going to do in the election? Because I honestly have no sense of this. I don't know if people have been paying maybe more attention to Canada than I have. But let's talk about this Canadian academic who is being stunning and brave. Stunning and brave. Canadian academic won't use capital letters except to acknowledge Indigenous people's struggle. A Canadian academic is joining the lowercase movement. Oh, it's a movement. Using lowercase letters is now a movement. Okay. Oh. Oh my God. Oh, dude. New York Post. Come on, New York Post. Come on, New York Post. Look at this. They even lowercased her name. They lowercased her name in the print article. Dr. Linda Manyguns. That's a ironic name. Dr. Linda Manyguns, Associate Vice President of Indigenization and decolonization at Mount Royal University. Why does Mount Royal I have never heard of Mount Royal University. Has anyone heard of Mount Royal University? They have an associate vice president of indigenization and decolonization. I'm going to have to look that up. Says she was joining local leaders to reject symbols of hierarchy wherever they are found and will not use capital letters except to acknowledge the indigenous struggle for recognition. She noted that it was the start of efforts to describe the use of lowercase letters on a website of the Office of Indigenization. So not only is she making a personal choice to only use lowercase letters herself, but she has dragged her entire workplace into this. Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada. We resist acknowledging the power structures that oppress and join the movement that does not capitalize. Manyguns wrote in a perspective story published on the university's website. Oh, God. Let's read this story. Let's read it. Lowercase as indigenous eventing support resistance. That doesn't even make sense. That sentence doesn't even make sense. Let's read the manifesto. Okay. This is a beginning effort at describing the use of lowercase on the website of the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization. Okay, dude, let me tell you this. I worked in higher education for like 10 years. I worked at 3 different colleges directly. I have consulted with an infinite, like not infinite, but like I've consulted with like dozens and dozens of colleges. I have worked with so many college leadership teams. I cannot even tell you guys. I bet you that there was a whole committee formed around this idea, because how higher education works is anytime they want to do something, they form a committee. So they basically get like 8 or 10 or 15 depending on how many people they want involved. They get a small group of people together to form a committee to create a strategy document to execute the thing. And everyone who has ever worked at a college in my chat knows I'm telling the truth about this. They create a committee, they have all sorts of meetings, and then they decide to do a thing. There are particularly strategy documents created. Here's my point. How much money did this university spend on deciding whether or not to lowercase the letters on a website for the Office of Indigenization and Decolonization? There, tens of thousands of dollars was probably spent on this. That's student tuition money. Tens of thousands of dollars was probably spent on this one singular decision. Let's keep going. Indigenous peoples have been actively engaged in a multidimensional struggle for equality. Oh, I'm surprised it's not equity. Equality since time immemorial. We strive for historical cultural recognition and acknowledgement of colonial oppression that persistently devalues the diversity of our unique cultural heritage. These sites of struggle are generally found at blockades where demonstrations against racism occur, where radicalization and cultural domination and discrimination leave the mark of imbalance and abuses of power. Sometimes these sites generate media interest, but interest is generally fickle. The explicit demonstration and practice of Aboriginal culture in everyday life or at places of resistance is called by academics eventing. The goal of equity, oh, we've moved on to equity now. The goal of equity, diversity, and inclusion of all people is synonymous with the interests of Indigenous people. Well, yes, Indigenous people are included in all people. We support and expand the goal of equality and inclusion to all forms of life and all people. We join leaders like E. Cummings, Bell Hooks, and Peter, I don't know how to say that last name, who reject, I'm sure I'm racist for not knowing how to pronounce that last name, who reject the symbols of hierarchy. wherever they are found, and do not use capital letters to acknowledge the indigenous struggle for recognition. We resist acknowledging the power structures that oppress and join the movement that does not capitalize. The Office of Indigenization and Decolonization supports acts that focus on inclusion and support the right of all people to positive inclusion and change. Let's go back. Manyguns made her comments following the discovery of more than 1,000 unmarked graves at residential schools, which underscored Canada's dark history. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported. The National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. I used to think that Canada was okay. Back when I was on the left, I thought that Canada was okay. I had no idea they had a National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. Estimates that 4,100 children died at residential schools in Canada. A large number of Indigenous children were forcibly sent to residential schools and never returned home, according to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'm not going to read that word. I will get demonetized. Indigenous people have been actively engaged in a multidimensional struggle for equality. So this is from what we just read. All right. So silly Canadian professor doing something silly. I'm actually interested to like bounce around this website a little bit. Let's just take a quick look. Because apparently this is a thing. Wait, they don't even have a link to the office? What does this office do? Let's see. What does this office do? Office of Academic Indigenous. Is this what we're talking about? Our mandate is to contribute to the implementation of the academic goals listed in the Indigenous. They have an Indigenous strategic plan, especially Goal 5, respectful and inclusive curricula and pedagogies. All right, let's keep going because we have a progressive order of crazy stories for the rest. And we're going to end on a high note. I will tell you guys this. We are going to end on a high note. We're going to end on a positive story for a change so we can send everyone off and they can feel good about something. What, I'm not quite sure, but we will be ending on a positive story. But let's check this out first. We're not there yet. We're going to look at a few more crazy things first. Princeton's diversity office nihilistic attack on university's history and anti-woke dissidents. So, if you guys remember back to last year when Trump was still in office, the glorious time of last year, Princeton University actually found themselves in a bit of trouble because the president of the was it Princeton or no, it was Princeton. I think it was Princeton. I'm 90% sure it was Princeton. Princeton University's president sent out a letter to like everyone, like alumni and community and all this stuff, basically saying that Princeton was a racist institution. And then in response to that letter, the Department of Education, which was then led by Betsy DeVos, started an investigation for a civil rights violation into Princeton because they were like, if you're going to admit that you've been a racist university this entire time, then we're going to investigate you for civil rights violations. But now Biden is in office and the Department of Education is run by a total woke idiot. And so here we are. Let's see what's going on. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office of Princeton University has a message for incoming students. It wants them to participate in a tearing down the very institution they have worked so hard to attend. And to drive this message home, the office is more than happy to tear down those who dissent from its official orthodoxy. As members of the class of 2025 arrive to campus, they receive a mandatory injection not of a vaccine against COVID, but of indoctrination. An official video freshmen are required to watch presents an utterly one-sided and negative picture of Princeton's history. The video and the accompanying website are expensively produced. Oh, you bet I think I know people who work on this website, and it is really expensive, actually. Yet slick production values do nothing to offset the 10 I don't even know what that word is. 10 I don't know what that word is. Sorry. I don't know all words in the dictionary. The video/site includes a 2-minute discourse in which the classics professor, whose name I'm not going to pronounce, criticizes free speech as a privilege rather than a right, and in which he disparages the speech of others with whom he disagrees as masculinized bravado. Can we watch this? Hang on. No, that's not a link to that video. Maybe we'll do the video another time. He goes on to extol free speech and intellectual discourse that is flexed to one specific aim, and that aim is the promotion of social justice and an anti racist social justice at that. I bet their parents are going to be real happy that these kids got into Ivy League schools, because the thing of it is, dude, the parents of most of these kids are conservative. I'm sorry. The parents of most of these kids are conservative. They're not on the left, they're conservative. I suspect anyway. I don't know that for sure, but I suspect. While he is certainly entitled to his opinions, the absence of others' perspectives on free speech suggests a jaundiced version of our fundamental commitment to free speech codified in Princeton's Rights, Rules, and Responsibilities document. There's also a weird out of context presentation of racist views, such as those of 20th century physicist William Shockey, a figure with no notable connection to Princeton. Worst, the site singles out classics professor Joshua Katz in a manner designed to stigmatize him as a racist, based on his criticism last summer of a defunct student group calling itself the Black Justice League in an article in Colette. So, Princeton, check this out. Princeton was so pissed that a random professor wrote an article in Colette. That I bet very few people at Princeton even read, but they were so pissed at this one professor for writing an article in Colette that they inserted this professor into their orientation session to make students hate him. That is like, I cannot tell you guys, like, if you've never worked in higher education, I simply cannot tell you how higher education this is. Like, how petty this is. What is it? So, oh God. I'm going to forget who said it. I think it was Kissinger. I want to say it was Kissinger. I could be wrong. But there's a famous quote about higher education that goes something like this: the politics are so vicious because the stakes are so small. And I'm 90% sure it was Kissinger who said it, of higher education. The politics are so vicious because the stakes are so small. And this is like the most higher education thing ever. The fact that this professor wrote an article in Quillette and another professor hated it so much that they created an orientation session specifically to badmouth the professor who wrote the article in Quillette so that incoming students hate him. That's the most higher education thing I've ever heard in my life, to be honest. While Katz had strong words for the BJL, the website fails to mention that he was decrying the harassment of the BJL had directed against students. Of course it did. Specifically, African American students who disagreed with its radical aims and tactics. Okay, so the article that this professor wrote said, don't harass Black people who disagree with you, but this orientation thing left that specifically off the website to just make it seem like this professor's a racist. We don't in any way oppose having a frank discussion about the history of our university, with its faults, yes, but also its glories. Yet Princeton President John Witherspoon, the most Ivy League president name ever. Yet Princeton President John Witherspoon owned slaves, but he was also the only clergyman to sign the Declaration of Independence, and he helped secure ratification of the Constitution and prevent the establishment of a national church. Good man. Yes, there were Princeton graduates who fought and died on the side of the Confederates, but there were just as many who fought to preserve the Union. Blah, blah, blah. History, history. A freshman orientation program should also take pride in the strong tradition of academic freedom on our campus and the richness of its intellectual life. Indeed, it is the university's very tradition of freedom that has allowed the institution to improve itself over the centuries, building on its strengths and shedding its weaknesses. It's thus astonishing to even think that when it comes to race relations, the DEI presentation took such a nihilistic view of the enormous progress made in the last 50 years. The only good that may come of that is that maybe some members of the class of 2025 will decide to specialize in history, motivated by the desire to do a better job of exploring and explaining the past with all its nuances and contradictions than their university has done. And this was written by John, who is a professor of politics and international affairs at Princeton. John will inevitably be probably utilized in next year's orientation session as an example of what not to do. All right, guys, we've just got a couple more things. If you're enjoying this so far, please mount that like button. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel, please make sure you subscribe. I would value your subscription. If you think you're subscribed, just double check because YouTube unsubscribes people all the time from my channel. It's just the way it goes. We've got a couple more. I'm not exactly sure how to cover this one. I'm not exactly sure how to cover it. I kind of suspect, like there are certain words I can't say, right? But I also feel like we need to talk about it because this is kind of like, is anyone surprised? You guys can all see this. Is anyone surprised? Is anyone surprised that this particular thing happened? So what is a good code word? What is a good code word that I can use for that S word? I'm going to ask in the chat. What is a good code word that I can use in substitution of the word we see in that title right there? What is a good code word? I need a code word. I can't say that word. What do you guys think? What word should I use? Self-delete. We're going to go with self-delete. Thank you, Just T. Appreciate it. Self-delete. I also don't know how to pronounce this university's name. I've seen this. I know what university this is. I just don't know how to pronounce this name. Like Duquesne University? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. Professor Derrick said there are merits to the argument proposed by another professor who argued that it would be ethical for white people to self-delete. The anti-critical race theory group Myth-Informed posted the video recently. This is part of an anti-racist discussion on nice white therapists held by the American Association of Psychoanalysis. Remember I said earlier that psychology had gone completely woke, psychiatry too. The video appears to be from a summer session hosted by Professor Hook. Is there any, listen, this guy's last name is Hook, like Captain Hook. Is there any better? It's like, sometimes I guess names choose people that are inclined to insane things. White people should self-delete as an ethical act, the top of a presentation by Hook said. He quoted from a South African philosophy professor who wrote in 2016 about white people self-deleting. He allegedly made similar comments in 2016 in reaction to racial division in the former apartheid state. There's a video of it. You can listen to him talking about it. The only life purpose for whites, especially Afrikaners, is to await their deletion or to self-delete, like the samurai falls on the short sword when he has fallen into disgrace. Here's the kind of crazy gambit of this talk, Hook said. I want to suggest that psychoanalytically, we could even make the argument that there was something ethical in Delport's statements. While Hook concedes that Delport might just be a fighter who is too aggressive in his arguments, he doesn't want to discuss the concept of white people self-deleting to atone for racism. He also suggests that symbolically white people could self delete or undergo metaphorical castration, I think is still safe to say. Okay. I want to make the argument that there is some kind of ethical dimension to his provocations. I think Delport took his white audience to the threshold of the symbolic extinction. He took them to the proposed end of whiteness. Now, here's where he's wrong, actually. He is wrong when he said he took them to the proposed end of whiteness, because how the woke left defines whiteness, it's about who owns the power structure. Whoever owns the power structure is white. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with who owns the power structure. That's why Larry Elder can be a white supremacist, according to the LA Times. That's why multiracial whiteness exists, according to the Washington Post. Like, they define it as who owns the power structure. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do with who owns the power structure. Delport is a scholar and practitioner of psychoanalysis with expertise in the areas of Lacanian psychoanalysis, post-colonial theory, the psychology of racism, and critical social psychology. Just when you think you've seen it all. But I do want to end on a happy note. We are going to end on a happy note. This is from Manchester, Connecticut. Sadly, not Manchester, New Hampshire, which is right down the road from me. But Manchester, Connecticut, Manchester teacher resigns after refusing to teach the district's mandatory equity work. A Manchester teacher has resigned after refusing to teach the district's mandatory equity work. Jen Tafudo taught in the Manchester School District for 3 years. She says teaching has always been her passion. While that hasn't changed, the curriculum has. She told News 8 that there was a big rollout of equity work this year, including books, questions, and activity for elementary school kids focusing on race. We are given read aloud books with a series of questions to ask our students during and after these read aloud books, she said. Just a few examples. I think it was totally unfair that white people were allowed to automatically have the bench at the bus stop just because they were white. I do not think that white people are better or more deserving than black people, which makes it very upsetting to me that they got better treatment. Who said that white people got the bench at the bus stop? Who made that decision? I would tell my students that if they were ever watching this, that they are cared for and loved. They are more than just the color of their skin, and I am so proud of them, and I look forward to seeing all the great things they'll do, she said. Just this year, she said, a parent tried opting her child out of being taught the equity work, but the superintendent reportedly said that wasn't possible. So she quit. News 8 reached out to the superintendent for his comment and received a statement that in part reads, Manchester Public Schools recognizes its responsibility to address, in grade and age-appropriate ways, issues that include racism, inequities, discrimination, and system bias. We know that the historic and current realities of racism make it more difficult for Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and other students of color to be successful. The work we are doing in Manchester is necessary, relevant, and overdue. So thank you to Jen for standing up for what's right. Just remember, guys, anytime you see equity, anytime you see the word equity in any form, even if it's inequities, that is a sign that they are doing critical race theory. You cannot teach critical race theory you can't teach equity without infusing principles from critical race theory. It's just the way it is. Anytime they're teaching equity or having an equity committee, they are also teaching critical race theory. But a good note to end on, I think. Much better than that last article that we read. All right, guys, that's all I have for Effed Up News of the Week today. Now, I will be back on Sunday. Typically, I do Effed Up News on Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Unless something goes terribly wrong, I'll be back on this channel again. If not, as a reminder, please, guys, please, I'm not just asking for my health here. Like, so many of you, I got so many comments from so many of you. I got emails from so many of you saying, Carlin, where are you? What is going on? Well, guess what? If you were in my locals community, you would have known where I was. You would have known. We never would have lost contact. I was still posting every single day in my local, almost every single day in my locals community. So make sure you join my locals. Make sure you do that. kb.locals.com. Even if you just sign up for a free account, guys, at least you're going to have a place where you can see things I'm posting. You can see an update. You can find out why I'm not posting on YouTube. Because if you don't hear from me for more than a couple days, it's because YouTube done effed up. Okay? So I post almost every single day on YouTube content around news, politics, culture, critical race theory, social justice, all that good stuff. Basically, whatever I feel talking about, that tends to be the topic areas. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll consider subscribing. I also hope you'll, set a reminder in your calendar or whatever. Effed Up News of the Week is on Sundays, usually, just not today, at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll do it again on Sunday. And tomorrow I will be back with nothing remotely controversial with Joshua at 9:30 p.m. We are excited to be back, and we will see you guys soon. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care.